Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Endless Celts Podcast. Alongside me is my co-host, John, a show regular, William, and we're delighted to welcome back Anthony Haggerty. How are you, Anthony?
I'm very well, guys. Yourselves?
We're all good. Thanks for coming back on,
good,
buddy.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, look, we've got so much to crack into, so we'll just take a brief look back at the Preston game at Celtic Park, where we'll welcome back 2,000 of the Celtic faithful. And fair enough, in the numbers on the TV screen, it didn't look much, but they made their voices heard, Anthony. And in regards to the game, just a brief chat about it. What was your take from it? I read your articles and I thought you were spot on, but now that you've had a chance to digest the game a couple of days after, are you still of the same opinion?
Oh, very much so. I think it just highlighted the lack in depth and the real dearth of quality that we have in the squad. I'm not decrying any of the youngsters because I thought the youngsters that have come in did really well, but they're being asked to do too much, I think, and I think it's unfair on them, but it's what Celtic have at the moment. There's just a real lack of quality players there, and with the new manager coming in, I think everybody thought that was going to signal and herald the start of a new era, and they would bring players in as we moved along. But even Ange said himself today, there's been a lot of delays in moving things with regards to transfers in, and you can see that, and I think a lot of Celtic supporters might be heading into tomorrow watching the game through cracked fingers.
I think one of the words he said as well, Anthony, in his press conference was hesitated. Celtic have hesitated in a lot of things, and that for me is quite concerning. Obviously, this has been a recurring theme over the last 10 years or so, especially before Champions League qualifiers. But come to yourself, William, before we move on to that. I mean, Anthony's spot on there. I mean, it did point out the lack of depth we have all around the pitch. I thought, to be fair, I'm going to be honest here, I thought Preston dominated us in parts of the game. They could have won 2 or 3 quite easily, to be fair. Barkas made a couple of good saves. Fair play to him. I hope he gets to run the team as well. But what was your take from the game?
Yeah, pretty much the same as the last game that we discussed on the podcast, the last podcast. Just again, it just seems like another fitness exercise. It's not. We don't really look sharp enough at the moment. A lot of you can see we're trying to implement the style, and it's moving the ball quickly and all the rest of it. But when there's no end product, it's not a pointless exercise, but it seems it's a struggle, and it is worrying for Tuesday. We did similar last year. We had plenty of the ball in every game last year, but it's the cutting edge up front that we've not got at the moment. And like Tony says, it's a lack of numbers. We've not got anybody up there other than a Yeti at the moment. There's nobody there, and we're lacking in wingers, and so going forward, we're looking like we're struggling to score goals. So
I think, to be fair, we're at the bare bones of a squad, even actually after that. Do you know what I mean? Because you're looking at the likes of Dane Murray, John, and coming in, and I mean he did particularly well. I thought when he came on in the half time against Preston, I thought he was actually better than Uragiri. But coming to yourself, John. What's your opinion on that game anyway? And I know it's pre-season and people look a wee bit too much into things, but I think our 4th game, I mean, we've played up until then. We played Charlton, Sheffield Wednesday. Who'd they play after that? It's kind of escaped my mind, and then Preston. I mean, the higher up we go, it seems like we're struggling a bit more. Do you not think that yourself?
I mean, yeah, it was a pretty lackluster performance. I mean, I suspect that they've kind of got one eye on this Midtjylland fixture, and I don't think the guys would have been pushing themselves too hard against Preston. You don't want to risk these guys getting injured on the eve of such an important fixture, so I suspect that I just maybe told them just to kind of ease off a wee bit. But again, like Tony says, what it did do was highlight the lack of depth, because when you're rotating players like that, it's like everybody that wasn't, as you would maybe suspect, would be in your sort of starting 11 on paper anyway. We're all young boys, and fair play to them. I mean, they've come on, they've played their part, and some of them have impressed over pre-season. But I think that ultimately, as William says, it's still a bit of a fitness exercise. I don't think we've been pushing ourselves too hard against Preston with this fixture just a couple of days after it. So I wouldn't look too much into it, but I mean, certainly the lack of depth is certainly a concern moving forward for me.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about a pre-season exercise, and a lot of fans are of that opinion. But coming to yourself, Anthony, about this, I mean, I looked at that Preston game, and I know I said brief, but I just want to get a wee bit more. I looked at the press of the game and I thought at least because there was 2,000 fans there, Celtic would be given a wee bit more, a wee bit extra. And John's right when he's saying that there's young players coming in and you're maybe not expecting much at this point. I mean, Dale Murray's, 17, 18? So you're throwing players like that in, expecting a big performance. But are you looking at it as more of a test for what we're coming up against Midtjylland on, tomorrow, because we're recording this on Monday?
I don't read too much into pre-season games, but what I do read into, Stephen, is that I want attitude, right? I want to see something. I want to see the Celtic players show me something. And it was just very flat and very lacklustre. And you mentioned Urhoghide. The other team we played was Bristol City, by the way.
Yeah, I got it. I got it, don't worry.
But Urhoghide, for me, he got a lesson on how to play by experienced footballers, in Ched Evans and Scott Sinclair, widely experienced campaigners, and he looked lost and he looked bereft of confidence eventually in that game. You talk about Dane Murray. Dane Murray settled into that defence really, really well, but you can't go into a game of that magnitude with someone like Dane Murray, partnering Stephen Welsh. You're asking for trouble then. So the unwritten law in Celtic's Champions League history is Nir Beaton plays in central defence, doesn't he? He just comes in from the cold, regardless of how fit or whatever, or how many games he's had.
He first appears in 2 years.
Yeah, he just always appears in the Champions League qualifiers. I don't know if it's a safety net or whatever, but, I just felt that the Celtic were really lax on Saturday against Preston. And I get it's a pre-season friendly, but 2,000 fans were there to see, some kind of shape, some kind of formations, some kind of style. And I think they left bitterly disappointed because they didn't see anything resembling that. Well, I don't think so in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I said that in the chat we had on Twitter as well. I mean, you look at the supporters who went to that match, the first game, 18 months I think it was before a Celtic supporter got into the stadium to watch Celtic play. Yeah. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, if I was a player, I'd be wanting to go and make a point, no matter if it's pre-season, right? You kind of get that extra motivation. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But before we move on to the FC Midtjylland game, just a word from you all and Callum McGregor being appointed the permanent Celtic captain. Come to yourself, John, first. Was that an obvious pick for you, Callum McGregor?
Yeah, I mean, I think prior to all the transfer stuff was like we discussed this. We said McGregor or Ajer were potential candidates, but obviously Ajer's destined to get a move away, so I think that kind of ruled him out. But McGregor seemed a natural choice.
Yeah. What about yourself, William?
Yeah, no brainer. Celtic through and through, been at the club ever since he was a boy, and he knows what it means to play for this club. And I mean, he's not a leader in the type of sense that Scott Brown is, but I think he leads by example on and off the park. Actually, I don't think there's anybody even coming close to him. So yeah, no brainer. It's got to be him.
I think yourself, Anthony, you wanted Christopher Ajer since you're such a big fan.
Christopher Ajer, heard it. I would drive him to his next destination, wherever that is. No, I think McGregor, what he will have learned from Scott Brown is how to be a captain. Eyebrows were raised when Scott Brown was made the Celtic captain, and my goodness, he grew into that role, didn't he? And I think Callum McGregor's been there and seen how it's done because he's been Scott Brown's right-hand man in that midfield. So I think if he'll have learned anything, he'll have learned a lot of Scott Brown, and Scott Brown left with the moniker captain, leader, legend. I think Callum McGregor has now got one of or two of those things. He's a captain and a bit of a legend because he's won a lot of medals. Now he just has to prove that he can be a leader in all of those three. And I think he's well capable of stepping up to the plate. My only other pick would have been Julian, but because Julian doesn't have a start date of when he's going to be back, then I think Callum McGregor made sense. He's been there through the good times and the bad times, so I think he's the perfect candidate. And maybe not, as William and John said, a leader per se, but I think he's one of those players that will grow into the role and he'll become more vociferous as he goes along.
I think as well, in terms of McGregor, he'll like lead by example. He'll show players the way instead of necessarily barking orders and stuff at them. Obviously, you're not going to get another Scott Brown, so Callum McGregor, I think it's a fantastic choice by Celtic. I mean, it was most obvious. We all thought that at the end of the season. But look, moving on to the Midtjylland game, and I want to touch upon the Postecoglou press conference today. And I'll come to yourself, William, first for this. He used a couple of certain phrases like hesitated and things were slow, and obviously there's mitigating factors and things. Do you think that's a concern in regards to what he was saying about the transfer activity at Celtic?
It is. I've always said that he's every time he speaks to the media, he makes me feel safe. He makes me feel like he's got the club, and everything's going to be all right. He's in control. But that press conference there and post-match Preston, it's the first time I've seen him get frustrated. Is probably the word he is, and it's frustrating for us also. He doesn't back down right enough from any of these questions these guys are putting to him. I thought if you're talking about the conference, he was asked about Griffiths and stuff like that, and obviously that's a touchy subject, but I thought he dealt with it well. But you can tell he's frustrated, and he's honest. He says that we're struggling depth. We've got no depth in the squad. We need to get players in. But he always goes back to the fact that that's out of his control. There's not much he can do about that at the moment, this moment in time, and what he can do is get this team ready for the task ahead. So, as much as it's worrying that we've got half a squad at the moment or half a team, we've always got hope. I think we might do the job. But yeah, he was cutting a frustrated figure in that press conference, especially. I don't know whether it is the frustrations coming from the lack of movement and the lack of transfer activity at the moment, or whether it's frustration that having to answer that same question over and over and over again every single day. But yeah, definitely frustration coming from him.
Well, look, you make a great point in regards to the Preston game. I mean, every time the camera panned to him, he was puffing at his cheeks, he was rubbing his hands down his face. It was just like he's watching the team that didn't have a clue how they were playing his style of football.
Yeah,
he spent.
And what I like about it is I don't like management where after games, it doesn't matter how bad they've played, they're always going to defend their players. Yeah, I understand to a point you need to do that, but I don't mind it when they're not played well and he comes out and says, no, it wasn't good enough. So this whole mantra about him when he came in about the fact that he's not going to take any nonsense and he's the go-to man. It seems that way. You can tell he's not happy. And I like that. I like the fact that it comes across that way. He wears his heart on his sleeve and his emotions are there and he knows it's not good enough. But again, he's only just in the door and it's tough. It's tough for him because, like we've said, he's struggling to put a team together. We've got young boys out there, 17, 18-year-olds out there, and it's understandable why he's frustrated.
It's like when you're playing five-a-side football and you lose a player and you're bringing around all your mates to see if they can fill in. That's what it feels like. That's Celtic at the minute. But look, let's get real here, Anthony, for a second, right? William made great points here in regards to like the transfer activity. I know we're saying Kyogo for Hiroshima. I think I got that right. I probably got that wrong, but we'll come on to that later in the show. It's a wee bit telling for me now that when he gets questions about these things, he keeps throwing wee snippets of like being frustrated. He's used the word hesitated, and it's things are slow. Things should be done weeks ago. And I mean, that Kyogo saying to me, you guys touched upon the Celtic state of mind. It's his player, but is it his player because he went, F this, I need a player? Do you know what I mean? No one knows that. But coming to yourself here, Anthony, is this a board issue? Because we've seen this previously with managers and nothing really has changed in the infrastructure yet at Celtic Football Club. Is it more of a concern that the same members of that board and the same members of the backroom team are there? And do you think that's rubbing off on Postecoglou in any sort of way?
Well, I wrote the other day, meet the new bosses, same as the old bosses. I exempt Postecoglou from all of this. This is a man who's been brutally honest with the Celtic supporters. He's telling them like it is, you know. He's telling them, I wanted players, the club were hesitant, you know, but this was a man who was supposedly getting back from day one when Dominic Mackay introduced him, and he said, and I said on the pod today, I can't understand why, if Postecoglou was the man who Celtic had targeted when they get a whiff that Eddie Howe wasn't coming, that he didn't say to him, you're the man, start identifying players, we'll bring you in on X date. And then they bring Postecoglou in, and then that same week unveil 1, 2, 3, 4 players. The likes of Starfield, Furushima and Abada should have been in days after Postecoglou came in, if these are his players and he signed them. What's the point in signing £12.5 million worth of players that can't play in the opening Champions League qualifier? It beggars belief, it really does. And again, as you say, a succession of Celtic managers have had to put up with that by the Celtic board. You know, these fixtures come around, they're the same dates every year. They don't change, you know. So Celtic are time and perpetual motion. They're always ill-equipped going into the Champions League qualifiers because our board somehow don't treat the competition with the reverence and respect that it deserves. And somehow I don't think their ambition lies in Europe. And see, if it doesn't lie in Europe, I want to ask one question: why? You know, they win a league that means not a lot to people outside of Scotland, you know, or outside of your own pond. You must have your eyes on Europe, but every year Celtic fail to prepare, and then say, and Ange's letting people know, I'm trying here, but the club have been hesitant. That's a big, big word. Hesitant, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's almost saying, don't blame me, I'm trying. You know, and I admire his brutal honesty here. And I also have written that I absolve him of any kind of debacle or blame that might happen in these in the European fixtures. Because Celtic will be better moving forward in 1, 2, 3 months' time, right? Because they will get players in, and he'll stamp his authority and mark on the team, and they'll get better. But it's the here and now that concerns the supporters, and it's the here and now against Preston where it was a real dawning of reality. Reality bit on Saturday for those 2,000 Celtic supporters and everybody that watched it. You know, there is a dearth of player, and there's also a dearth of quality, and there is no strength and depth, because you can't ask young players to carry you through Champions League qualifiers. You get what's coming to you then, if that is the case. And that's not decrying any of the ability of the young players who showed up well, but it's a different ball game. You step up in opposition, step up in class, everything, and it's the Champions League. You know, the bounty, 30 to 40 million quid. If you can't take that seriously, then what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm a total agreement. I mean, we're big advocates in this podcast for young players coming in, but if you look around European football, and especially at top mid-level clubs, you get 1, 2, maybe 3, possibly, of young players in with the squad surrounded by experience. This Celtic team at the moment is just a squad with no experience, bar maybe McGregor and Turnbull, the likes of that. But you're looking at it, William, as Anthony rightly said there, these players are being thrown in. Postecoglou sounds frustrated, and it doesn't bode well for tomorrow's fixture against Midtjylland, does it?
No, not at all. Excuse me. 6 months ago, we were screaming and talking about how, well, I was saying that if the Howe deal dragged on so long, if that does end up going tits up, that there was going to be a massive backlash, and I think we're in the middle of it now. There's next to no time. You feel for Big Ange because there's next to no time for him to prepare. What Tony's saying there is, it's year after. This isn't just a season. It's year after year after year. We are playing a game with this Champions League. They never ever make these signings before. And the difference between this year is we've got far harder ties than we have had for the previous 5, 6, 7 years. You know what I mean? So we should be even more prepared. It's not, you can't understand like in previous years gone by why for Celtic looking at it from a financial aspect, we're better than these teams. We shouldn't need to make signings to beat these. We should be getting through these teams. This year is a far different proposition. These are big teams we are playing against, and it's not baffling because it just like we said, it happens over and over and over again. But the fact that we're gambling again for our European football, which, let's face it, over the last, well, forever, European football's been the mecca for us. It's what we all live for as fans. It's what we want to see. We want to see us against the best teams in the world. And yet again, we're gambling with it, and it looks like a very, very difficult gauntlet to get through with the teams that are ahead of us. And not only that, we're given a slight handicap with the fact that we're lacking in depth and we're lacking in quality. So it's very worrying.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who's listening, my co-host John has had to leave us for some technical issues. I think he hasn't paid his Wi-Fi bill, but sure. I mean, but see, to be honest, let's get real here again, right? So you look at Celtic always been portrayed by the board as a big European club with ambitions to get into the top table European football. It seems to be the only person at the top table European football within the club is Peter Law at that ECA board. But I mean, coming to yourself, Anthony, being realistic about it, I mean, when I was younger, I had the blinkers on, and I could never see anything wrong with Celtic. And then I started obviously studying more and looking more in depth into the club. And even when I started doing these podcasts and speaking to certain people, including yourself, it's opened up my mind to a different prospect in regards to around the Celtic. No, it's true. But you look at it from the outside in. Yes, we're a big club, big history, big institution. But just at the moment, it feels like from the top, there's no ambition to take us to the next step.
Yeah, I mean, we don't act like a big club, do we? And we haven't acted like a big club for a long time. You know, well, since Brendan Rodgers came in the door, and they acted like a big club, and you know what happened? Unprecedented success. You know, funny that, isn't it? That when you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, you back the manager who gets everything that he wants. You qualify 2 out of 3 for the Champions League. The one that you don't back the manager. He leaves. You know, it's the beginning of the end. But Celtic seem to have this kind of macabre thing going on every summer where they play Russian roulette with the Champions League. You know, and for Celtic supporters, it's not good enough. It's where your standards are set. It's where you're judged. You know, and if you're going to be a big club, you can't masquerade as a big club. You know, you have to sometimes speculate to accumulate. You know, and a lot of people are saying this year, the league matters more than anything. Yeah, but the league mattered more than anything last year. Can you imagine if Celtic had won the 10? Spoke about it today. You could have marketed any product with a 10. How much money would you have raked in if Celtic had won the 10? You know, putting 10 on anything, you would have got it all back. So there comes a point in reality where you faces you and you think, do you know what? You know, last season was the season to maybe have a tilt at everything. You know, 10 could have followed, and then you could have maybe, you could have possibly have set yourself up with a team good enough to win the title this year and automatic access to 40 million quid. At this moment in time, you can't see Celtic doing anything in Europe, and you can't see them winning the league and getting access to 40 million quid, which flies in the face of what I said a minute ago, saying that they're going to get better, because they will get better, but are they going to be good enough to win a title?
No,
that's what's even more scary. Like see before, like I said in previous years, we've talked about how they're gambling with the Champions League, but it seems that way. Looking from the for the financial aspect, it's like, well, domestically we're winning everything. So why? It seems to me they're like, why are we going to splash the cash on a player or a number of players to qualify for the Champions League, and it goes wrong, and we're going to win everything anyway? But this year, Tony just nailed it. Everybody talks about how the league's the most important thing this year. The league season starts in a couple of weeks, and we're not prepared for that either. So,
yeah, you could be behind the 8 ball in a matter of weeks. Watch 3 of the first 4 games. Hearts, Rangers, and Aberdeen or Hibs. Am I right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that you should be running scared at any of those teams, but if you've not got a settled team, settled players, settled formation, you could find yourself a right good few points behind by the end of August, beginning of September. And it's hard to play catch up. We had hoped that everything would run smoothly when Ange came in, and we'd hit the ground running, and it would be a brave new era and a brave new dawn. You touched on it there. That's a big word to me, that in that press conference today. Hesitant. It explains a lot maybe of his body language and his frustration. People say he's like that all the time. That's fine. But if things aren't happening quick enough for the manager, how long before he gets annoyed and really frustrated? And he was honest today. That was a shot over the bow. That was a help me and a plea for help. I'll do this. I'm charged with a task. I'm honoured to be charged with this task, but I'll do my bit if you do yours. You can't send me into battle into Europe without any new players. I mean, it's criminal they've signed. It's criminal they've spent 12.5 million quid on new players, and not one of them can play in the Champions League. I mean, that blows my mind. What's the point?
It's a bit like that situation when they signed Bolingoli and Julian, isn't it? Just leaving them on the bench for weeks on weeks, and then Turnbull as well towards the latter end of the season. But bringing yourself back into the conversation, John, William alluded to the fact that you maybe paid your Wi-Fi bill when you were off earlier, but sure, coming to yourself, bring you back to the press conference. We were speaking about it there, that word hesitant. It is a big word. It seems like Anthony's right there. It is a shot at the board to be like, come on, do your bit that you promised that you'll do. Dominic Mackay promised them as well. He's going to get back. Are you concerned at all about Ange Postecoglou's latest press conference?
Yes and no. I certainly feel that some of the stuff that he said was alarming. But he's kind of put them to rights, and he's by coming out and saying what he said, he's let the board know that he's not going to let it slide, and he's letting the fans know he's not letting it slide. I think he done the right thing by being honest. I think that's something we've missed in managers of late. And like we mentioned, you can tell he's frustrated because he knows the position we're in, and he knows the magnitude of these games coming up and the importance of them to the club, both financially and for the season overall. So, I mean, and Tony said that he made a perfect point there. He's like 12.5 million on players who aren't even going to feature. It's a lot of money to spend on guys who aren't going to help potentially navigate this qualifier. And even if we get by Midtjylland, it's what faces us after that as well, which concerns me. So we need to ensure that if Dom was right in what he said, and I believe that he was, and that he is backing Ange and the board, etc., are backing them, then they are doing what they can. I appreciate, obviously, maybe things aren't getting done as quickly as possible, as quickly as we'd like, but we are in sort of a completely different set of circumstances than you would be normally. And I think Ange alluded to that fact as well when he said normally it's just sign a player, get him on the plane, get him out, a couple of photos, and then that's him. We can't do that now. A lot of these countries that we're getting players for potentially, well, I suppose new for today anyway, it doesn't really matter. But prior to today, there's a lot of sort of rules and regulations about the whole COVID carry on and all that, and that might have played a part in delaying some things. So I'm hoping that at least moving forward, because we can't do nothing about it now at this point, so I'm hoping at least moving forward we start to see things move a lot quicker now that we don't have to abide by these regulations, because I'm assuming that all these top athletes and that they've already had both their doses and everything else, and for coming into this country as of today, I believe they don't need to self-isolate if they've had both. So hopefully, as I said, hopefully that's a sign that things are going to start moving with a wee bit more pace.
I don't know if you guys know this, but Adaba, the Israeli signing, he actually had to play under a trial list against Preston because there's partly issues around his work permit, which hasn't been actually issued yet. So I think that's part of the reason why he's not featuring tomorrow evening, which kind of comes back to your point, £12.5 million of free players who won't be anywhere near Celtic Park for this game. But look, we'll come on to the squad now. Go ahead, William, sorry.
Sorry, mate. See, just to touch on like what John was talking about there, and I do agree with every point he's making about how there's obviously factors involved now, and that's what the reason behind the fact that these deals are stalling. But this is something that this board should foresee months and months ago. Yeah, the fact that it was dragged out with how has left us in this position. And I've said it countless podcasts with how before. It should have been a matter of, listen, you're our number one target. We want you. What's happening? Are you coming or going? And if he says, "Oh, I don't want to the end of the season," just say, "No. You're not putting the club up. You know what I mean? You're not. You're not holding us to ransom. If you want to be here, you're here. We want you. You're number one target. If you don't, then we're going to move on. If that's the case, we've got bloody 3 months, more than that, however many months it was, for if Ange was the next guy in line to get him in and have these deals get processed back when the transfer window first opened. But because we've stalled and waited, that's why we're in the position we're in. So as much as, I understand now, everybody's hands are tied and there's not much we can do about it now. These guys are paid stupid amounts of money to sit in a... They need to foresee these things. There needs to be a plan B, C, D, E, F and G. But it doesn't seem that way. It just seems like it's, that didn't work, so we're going to have to go and do this now. And then now we're left in the ship, basically.
There's no visionaries. They're always reactive. They're never proactive.
Exactly.
The Celtic board, right? I mean, let's be honest. And I'll tell you something else that's beginning to annoy me. It's like any team that Celtic play in Europe, now people are talking about death ties and all that, like PSV and Galatasaray lying in wait if they beat Midtjylland. No, years ago they used to talk about groups of death. And a group of death meant you'd qualify for the Champions League group stages. And I'll give you an example of some of Celtic's groups of death. Bayern Munich, Lyon and Anderlecht 2003-04, Man City, Barcelona, Borussia Mönchengladbach 2016-17, PSG, Bayern Munich, Anderlecht a year later, and back in 2013-14, Barcelona, Milan, Ajax. They're groups of death, right? I don't believe that ties against PSV and Galatasaray are death ties, but Celtic supporters were taking a sharp intake of breath that they thought, oh God, if we beat them, we're now playing them. These PSV and Galatasaray are traded in, reputations earned years ago, possibly like Celtic too. But you try to tell me that Celtic can't compete with these guys. Rangers beat Galatasaray in the Europa League last season.
I think
there's this attitude that and it's pervading the Celtic supporters, and it's all very gloom and doom, and that they're hopeless cases in Europe. And if that's the case, there's certain people that have dragged Celtic to that point in their history where they're a hopeless case in Europe or they're an also-ran. And that attitude has to change. And those at the top have to see that. Celtic are a glorious and illustrious history in Europe. And I'm not saying we're going to get back to those dizzy heights anytime soon, but you want to be seen to be ambitious and trying to get there. But it doesn't matter who Celtic draw in Europe now. Supporters are like, oh, that's tricky, that's hard. When really, Midtjylland, PSV and Galatasaray, Celtic shouldn't be seeing them on the road. They should be able to comfortably beat these teams because they would have a team and process that can compete and be better than them. But sadly, it's not. And that's what really galling me at this moment in time. Why should Celtic be worried about a tie against a Danish side? Let's be honest, they shouldn't be, but they are, and they've been brought to this by gross mismanagement of the football club. Nobody, as you say, like Neil Lennon left the door in February. Where's the forward planning? The minute Neil Lennon left, they should have given Eddie Howe 2 or 3 weeks, tops, and then and should have been brought in, and then, as I say, those rafter players should have been brought in to work some team shape, some team formation, some style, so that by the time this game came, Celtic were hitting the ground running. Everybody was singing from the same hymn sheet. I've never known Celtic to go into a Champions League qualifying tie so haphazard and on a wing and a prayer. And I know we've had years of ill preparations, but I think this is the most ill-prepared I've ever seen Celtic go into a Champions League qualifying tie. You guys could maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it certainly smacks of it, doesn't it?
No, I would agree with that.
Anthony, this is what we're here for. Let it all out. But coming to yourself, John, you were going to respond to what Anthony was saying. Go for it.
No, I was just going to mention that I agreed with what he was saying, but like the people that need to be held accountable for the failings is the people at the top. As I say, they put all their eggs in one basket with Howe, and that's cost us significantly because now we're in the position that we're in. And what my comment was going to be more, and you're absolutely right, Tony, because we as a club shouldn't be fearing Midtjylland, and we shouldn't be fearing PSV, and we shouldn't be fearing Galatasaray, but we know, and I think when you look at the team and the state it's in at the minute and the situation the club's in terms of the rebuild and how well prepared we are, that's the reason why we're kind of going to the, and that is, I think, ultimately, like you touched on as well, that's the most worrying part, that what actually stood to a point now where that is the situation that we're in, when it should never have been the case in the first place. So I perfectly agree with everything you say there, Tony. I just wanted to add to it.
I think if you make domestic dominance your god, then you've got to domestically dominate, haven't you? Celtic until last season, Celtic thought 10 was in the bag, and then they could hit the restart button. And I think most supporters would maybe have accepted that, but they failed at the most critical juncture, and everything has just seemed to gone to pieces since then. And it's no good enough.
Is another take? Like you were speaking about the European ties, and I have this issue with the Celtic, especially the higher up you go in the Celtic kind of boardroom and other levels and stuff in the club. It's kind of take what you're given now with Celtic. There's no kind of in between with Celtic at the moment. You look at, as you both rightly said, you look at these European ties we could potentially face, like of Midtjylland. Again, it's a team. Let's be honest here. It's bang average team. Rangers smashed them 2 years ago, so. There shouldn't be anything we're going to fear, but you guys are right. We're at that point now. We're at that juncture. The squad that we're seeing on this list that was put out, the squad list, it's just kind of detrimental. And you look at it from my eyes anyway, and it's like we could face the potentiality of being put out again by Midtjylland. I mean, look at the likes of Furnace Faros, Malmo, Maribor, all them teams, and that was in the easier run in the Champions League, and now we're in the champion. Well, now we're in the harder run that the Champions Pub just used to say that, but obviously not now. But I mean, it's like you're almost going to yourself, as you guys said. It's mind-boggling that Celtic, as a football club, are afraid of them ties, and the fans, much like myself, I have to be honest, have kind of looked at that going, can we really get past that? Now that brings me on to the squad, and we've seen that Champions League list been put out. Obviously, all the views are on it. A few surprise inclusions like Lee Griffiths and people like that, and then obviously Ayers missed out and Nishan's missed out. But come to yourself, William, the squad list does kind of point. I mean, we spoke about it at the top of the show, but looking at that with plain eyes on that list, there's nothing really there, is there? Like,
no. Short answer, no. What it surprises me because what he did say in his press conference was everybody that's in the squad's available. But Christopher Julian's there, who's not kicked the ball for us for however long. Christie's not been involved as much in pre-season. Forrest hasn't been there at all. And I know he says that people. It wasn't a contradiction, but he was. On one hand, he actually said everybody that's in the squad is fit and available, and then he went on to say about how everybody's at varying variable fitness levels, and everybody's at different. So it's a strange one for me. A couple of inclusions are a bit strange, but I wasn't expecting much more, to be fair. And looking at the team, looking at that squad, it's going to be difficult to. I was been trying to think of formations and how you can fit certain players in where, which is what pretty much Neil Lennon did the whole of last season. But it's difficult to pick a first 11 for there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, you rightly said there is a few surprise inclusions. I mean, Lee Griffiths is the guy he's the hot topic at the moment, isn't he? Really, William? And just obviously briefly, are you surprised to see him back in the squad?
No, I'm not. I'm not really. I mean, we've discussed it at length before. Obviously, before all the stuff that's went on in the last few weeks. But we said at the end of the season, I think we were all in agreement that he's had more than enough chances to prove his worth to Celtic. Celtic have backed him at every turn, and I think if circumstances were different, we probably would have let him go at the end of last season. With regards to what's went on, he's been cleared of everything. The police investigation he's been cleared of. So technically, from that point of view, there's you move on. It's not how most people will see it, but if he's fit and ready, then and there's nothing incriminating against him, then he's got to be in the squad. So I wasn't surprised to see that at all. No.
Yeah, I mean, come with yourself, John, with the squad list and stuff, and Lee Griffiths, if you want to speak about that briefly, but. What's your opinion on? I mean, we did speak about lack of depth. That, as I said, definitely that clearly shows where we're at as a team at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't think there was any real surprises. I expected all the usual suspects in that were listed. And again, like William says, I'm much like him, and I'm sure Tony's the same. Is you're looking at it and you're trying to figure out what the starting lineup's going to be. You've obviously got your mainstays, McGregor, etc. That are going to be first on the sheet, but it's your sort of defensive positions and things like that you're looking at, and it becomes slightly more worrying because we know how weak that area is, and we're going into this tie without any real strength or depth in the defensive side. So, I mean, ultimately, no surprises, but I mean, try to figure out, especially with the way that Ange is sort of looking to play, how he's going to line up.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the whole team. I mean, look at Ralston. He's going to be first choice right back. Greg Taylor left back, and it's mind-boggling, isn't it? Awfully, really. I mean, you're looking at it.
Ralston, it'll be Beaton and Welsh beside those two.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Ralston. You look at it, it's like, really, he wouldn't get in most SPFL sides. That's not me being personal. Again, it's just an opinion. And then you go up further up the pitch. Strikers are, I don't know, Griffiths, you've got Ayeti, you've got Edward. Edward's checked out. There's rumours of Brighton's come in for him for £20 million, which I don't really believe.
Edward will play tomorrow. He has to play. he has to play Edward. See, while he's there, you've got to get a tune out of him. And he's the best striker we've got at that club by a country mile, right? Because Ajeti, the last couple of pre-season friendlies, I go on about attitude. Ajeti was given a lesson on how to lead a line on Saturday when Edward came on. He really did. Edward showed for the ball. He played the ball at wide to Abada, looked to like the play, trying to get into goal-scoring positions. Ajeti can be quite lackadaisical in that kind of sense. Don't think he shows enough. And if the ball's not coming to him, he just goes missing. You can't have that as your main striker. Lee Griffiths, whatever happens with Lee Griffiths is morally bankrupt as far as I'm concerned. There's a moral issue here with Celtic with regards to Lee Griffiths. Don't want to dwell on it too much, but he's been included in the squad, so it shows you what Celtic are thinking, and it shows you the fact that if Celtic had 2 or 3 other strikers on the books, I don't think Lee Griffiths would be anywhere near that squad.
100%.
Right?
Definitely.
So Celtic, I mean, there is a moral issue here with regards to Lee Griffiths, and Lee Griffiths himself stands in negative equity or morally bankrupt with the Celtic supporters at this minute. And big call. And Ange dealt with it well today, I thought, because this is a situation that's been foisted upon him, after the kindness of his heart giving him a new deal, and then he's had to deal with it, and then he's waited till all the investigation, both the criminal one and the internal one by the club, and he said, okay, he's come into my consideration now because he reverts to he's a Celtic player, right? Which is the fairest way you can describe it, So, but Edward has to play. You want to advance through this tie, you've got to play Edward for as long as he's there. Granted, he's going to leave, and it's no Ange Postecoglou's modus operandi because he wants players that are there. But if you want any kind of result, then you have to play your best team, And I also think that Christie might play as well. And that might pain.
Don't be saying that.
That might pain a lot of people, but again, he's tried and tested, and he's experienced. Because we are threadbare. In fact, probably worse than threadbare. You're not going to trust. You're not going to trust young kids to go in a game of that magnitude. So you're going to have to turn to the likes of Christie. So it's incredible that it's come to this, but it has come to this, and we've been in this movie before, and the Celtic supporters kind of know how this movie ends, because I say that today, the Celtic supporters know their history. The only ones that don't know their history is the Celtic board, because they keep making the same mistakes when it comes to these kind of matches, and they don't pick up the slack. It's ordinary supporters like you and I who feel it when it goes pear-shaped. We feel it, not them. They can still earn their hundreds of thousands of pounds, wear their club badge and their blazer and their suit, But it's the Celtic fans who fork out their hard-earned, who turn up every week, who do podcasts, who give up their time because they love the club so much. We feel it. And Ange is certainly feeling it right now, because he's like, what kind of movie have I walked into here? This is not at the moment what it said on the tin, and that has to change. And I get back to it. A massive warning shot over the bow today of the Celtic board by Ange. And I'm glad he did it, because it shows everyone saying, oh, he's just another yes man. He certainly ain't no yes man. He looks like a man who's like, I've been here 40 days. If you want me to stay another 40 days, get your finger out.
Yeah. I think as well, like, you look at it from the outside. I mean, you're right. Us Celtic fans always pick up the slack. The people at the top don't really care. Obviously, they give you what they want to give you, so to speak. And if they don't want to give you any more, they won't tell you anymore. We've seen that throughout all them months. Then he wasn't there. All the statements that didn't come out, we wanted to come out. And then when we got something, it was total shit what was said in the statements. But like you said there in regards to the movie, just going off topic here, what kind of genre do you think this movie would be, Anthony?
What, comedy horror? Is that what you can you fuse two genres? I think that's exactly what it would be, wouldn't it?
Comedy horror. So I think that's a perfect way to describe it. I mean, in regards to the squad, I think looking at it, you're kind of facing the possibility of throwing Dave Murray in, because he was better than Urgidi, being honest. Beaton, if he's 100% fit. Julian, if he has one leg available, get him on the pitch. As William said, he's still injured. But I mean, coming on to the transfer side of things, I know we touched upon it, but there's the likes of Kyogo Furushima, who's been signed from Japan. Adaba, he's been confirmed and signed, and then Starfelt looks like the next player coming in. I'm alluded to the fact that it was £12.5 million on players who can't feature, John. But do you think maybe after this game tomorrow, I know we keep saying, do you think this is going to happen? What do you think next? What do you think's happening going next? But you kind of have to have a bit of hope somewhere. Do you think there's going to be an influx of new players coming in the next sort of 8 to 10 days?
I do. Like I said earlier, it's like now, obviously, the regulations and stuff has changed. There's absolutely no reason why that's not going to be the case. I think Starfelt obviously will be the first name announced. We know we're still in the market for other players, and it's getting those over the line. But I, like I said, I am in that respect. I'm trying to remain somewhat positive, and I do feel that, especially over coming days, we'll probably see a lot more movement in the sort of transfer area. But yeah, as I say, it's hard to tell. And Andrew's comments today didn't necessarily help matters, but it's like, yeah, I think now that the rules and regulations in terms of coming into the country have changed, that things will start to speed up and we'll start to see a little bit more movement. But I will say this, and I said this previously, and the Kyogo one was a perfect example of this. I feel that a lot of the names that are being linked is just your paper talk. It's just the rags down with the day, and you'll get linked to everybody. But I do feel that Celtic have a lot of cards close to their chest, and they might not be coming and moving as quickly as we'd like, but I feel that they're coming, and at least I'm telling myself that regularly to try and keep my spirits up. But I do feel that there's going to be some announcements that I don't think we were ever aware of, like the Kyogo one. It's just going to come out of the blue, and like I said, I think we'll be in a much better position in the coming weeks than we are at the minute.
I also think as well that we have to look domestically too. And I mean down south, the Ben Davis rumour isn't going away. George Baldock for Sheffield United as well. Guys like that. They're first team ready. They could come in tomorrow. So why haven't we explored that as well?
Yeah, just looking back there, that I mean, see Ben Davis and George Baldock. We spoke about this at length in the podcast. Is that not working off old transfer targets? I mean, Ange Postecoglou, he wouldn't have had time to really scout them sort of players, would he?
No, they maybe are. They maybe are on an old list. That's fine, but they're still not going away because they're still being written about as potentials for Celtic. But what I'm saying is, they're first team ready players. They've got loads of experience. And anybody coming into that team will improve it. I mean, anybody worth their salt, you'd have to think they would improve it. Ben Davis would improve it, wouldn't he?
I agree.
Just because he never came the first time doesn't mean he's become a bad player. Baldock has just been one of those that's been bubbling away. And you speak to people about him, they rate him very highly. I just think that, these kind of players, can Celtic really afford to turn around and say, no, we don't want them if they can get them in the door? I don't think they can. But again, Postecoglou, Furushima, look how quickly that get done. Done overnight. That deal.
What is your opinions on Furushima and Leo Abada and possibly Kar Starfelt? I mean, I've seen Russian journalists and stuff obviously tweet out, you have to translate the tweet and things, but saying that he's quite possibly the best ball-playing defender in the Russian Premier League. Is them sort of players exciting you?
Of course, I said before, in a month's time, Celtic will be a far better team because these guys will be in the door. It's just that we don't have a month's time till we play Midtjylland. And that's what Celtic fans were. That's the first fixture Celtic fans looked at as soon as the season finished. Who are we getting in the Champions League qualifiers? Right, let's be geared up for that. And when Ange came in, and we got a new manager, we all thought be brave new era, brave new dawn. We'd have a few new players. I thought we'd at least have 4 or 5 new signings in. We've got none. Right? None, have they? They've none. Urigidi, Liam Shaw. Right? Yeah, you're laughing. Right? So that tells you what you think about that. So these guys should have been in the door weeks ago. They should have followed the manager in the door the week after the manager. So what happened? And I think what Ange Postecoglou was alluding to today was telling you what happened. The board have dragged their heels. How come every year the Champions League horse bolts and then Celtic act? I've said before that the blip in all of this was Brendan Rodgers' era, because they backed Brendan Rodgers to the hilt. because they respected him as a man and a manager, and they just took everything that he said as gospel, much like the fans. When 13,500 turn up just to wave at you, you know what I mean? Say hello, you know? You've not done anything, but he was a hero. So, but everybody, there was a whole groundswell of that, you know, that kind of, everybody just thought that it was the right man at the right time, and they armed him to the teeth. And you know, it's no surprise that he swept the boards, you know? So why is Brendan Rodgers the blip in all of this? Why can't they do the same with Ange Postecoglou, Neil Lennon for that matter? You know, so it's only, you know, only now and again they're going to arm a manager to the teeth. They did it with Martin O'Neill, you know, big blockbusting manager, arm him to the teeth. After that, it's a period of downsizing. Celtic fans are fed up with that. Why they only pick specific moments in time to really back their managers? I find that bewildering, and it's pretty, you know, it's pretty underwhelming as well. You know,
I think as well, there, like, you make a great point in terms of Brendan Rodgers being the blip and the whole operation and the way Celtic run things. It's because Celtic, for me, always revert back to type. It's what's expected, and it's what they probably find easy in some sort of way, just to drag their heels and wait to the very last minute to get transfer deals over the line. And then 9 times out of 10, being honest, it never really works out. And you made a perfect point there. Like, Celtic have seen this movie before, and they know how it ends. It seems like we're repeating the same cycle. What's the definition? What's the definition of insanity again? Doing the same things over again, expecting different results. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Do you know what I mean? But coming to yourself, William, about the transfer side of things. I know we're going off a bit of a tangent there. People probably calling us negative, but for me, it's just being real. With the people coming in that we're speaking about, Kyogo for Rishima, I think he's going to be a cracking player. I mean, the send off he got from the supporters was mental, and Iniesta gives him a good write up as well. But are you excited possibility coming in the next few months, what way the squad's going to look?
Yeah, I've been excited since the league was over and months ago, to be honest with you. About I've always talked about in this podcast how I felt the way we lost it last year, and it's Alex Ferguson was the greatest at it. Just because you're winning everything, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be looking ahead and looking to freshen it up and change things when we feel like it's getting stagnant and going stale. And I think that we rested on our laurels last year because we were so successful in the previous however countless years. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes through the door. Again, just to echo everything the guys are saying, are these deals, they're exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing these guys, but they should have been done weeks and weeks ago. And saying that, we were talking in a podcast last week on Thursday about how frustrated we were that nothing's through the door, and then fast forward a few days and we've got two signed, and one looks like he's on his way. So as much as we can complain and moan, they can get them in just as quickly. And like John alluded to there as well, the Kyogo deal was just out the blue. Origidi as well was another one that I never heard anything come through from any media about that before he was signed. That was another one just out the blue. So we never know what can happen in the next few days. But saying that all goes back to exactly what Tony's saying. Our biggest game that we've been looking forward to in the last few months is this game tomorrow night, and that we've not got anybody in the door to strengthen the squad other than Origidi and Shaw, Shaw was signed in January last year, if I'm correct. And it's difficult when you're seeing, we talked about it, Ange being frustrated. He said himself as well, which alluded to the fact that it was a factual comment that he's been involved in, with the fact when he was talking about it's not just us, it's outside influences too, it's at other clubs or other people we're talking to, where they say we'll give you a call back tomorrow, and then because they do call you back tomorrow, it doesn't just stop the deal an extra day. It's another week for it to happen and stuff like that. So as much as we criticise the board and stuff like that, it does seem like there's outside factors that can affect that as well. So yeah, it's not ideal. We're not in a good position at the moment. But if we get through this tie and we get these guys in the team and ready to go, then we'll be in a much better position in, like Tony says, in a few weeks, a month, 2 months. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing these guys and see what they can do.
Look, I'm only mentioning one guy, late Sunday evening, he was linked to Celtic, the Great Wall, Fraser Foster, for another sensational comeback to Celtic Park, right? Now, I mean, there's been a lot of divided opinion. I've been having fun reading through all people's different comments and stuff, and just want to give my take on it. I'll come to you guys. Fraser Foster, I said this to you in our podcast chat group as well. For what he's done for Celtic, he's probably the best shot stopper since Arthur Bhoys. I think we all agree with that. But for me, and it's not just because he rejected coming back last season, I just don't think this would be a Postecoglou signing. I think this would be another one which is thrusted upon him, because everyone has this big issue with Barkas. I personally believe Barkas will be the number one going forward, and I think he'll come good. I think he's suited the Postecoglou style of play. We've seen him in the both pre-season games down in the Wales camp anyway, playing basically the halfway line. And that to me, he looked confident in that role, Anthony, didn't he? He looked like he took a bit of a 40 in what he was doing. And not only that, in the press in the game, people give him grief about not being able to stop balls or save shots. He saved 2 goal-bound opportunities, Scott Sinclair, and then one bang straight at him, basically full force. So I personally believe Barkas will be number one going forward. What's your opinion on the whole Foster-Barkas situation?
Foster for me is a no-no. Right, it's a year too late. You know, whatever happened, they couldn't convince him to come last year when we were in desperate need of him. So I don't think we're in desperate need of him now, because like you, I think Ange Postecoglou is going to give Barkas every chance to become the undisputed Celtic number one. And as you alluded to there, he seems a more confident goalkeeper now, doesn't he? Sometimes players just need an arm around them, you know. And Postecoglou's Greek-Australian, isn't he? Your man's Greek, so maybe just a compatriot saying to him, look, you're my man, you know, speak your language, you're going to do this for me, you're going to be my man moving forward. You know, I felt sorry for Barkas talking about movies. He was in the wrong movie last year. You know, the crisis of confidence in himself and in the defence playing in front of him. The 2 of them had a crisis of confidence at the same time. So neither of the back 4 or the goalkeeper were working in tandem. They just had a healthy mistrust of each other, which is why everything going towards the goal seemed to go in. You know, it's a poor reflection on Barkas, but he certainly wasn't as bad a goalkeeper as people were making out. And he's came, again, I go back to attitude. What an attitude he's came in with in the pre-season games. And I've enjoyed watching him, because I think that will be good management and a test of Ange Postecoglou's management. If he can get a turn out of Barkas, he'll save the club a few quid in the process, but it'll be good management. And just sometimes players just need to be told, you're the man. You know, and Barkas came in a season where everything hinged. You know, failure wasn't an option. You know, so there was heaps of pressure there. You know, and to come into that, and especially the year he came with COVID and all that, and maybe not being able to see his family members and stuff, you know, lots of external forces can affect your performance. And it was clear to see that Barkas was affected, especially when Neil Lennon said, he's my number one, and 3 weeks later he dropped him. So, you know, all sorts went on in Barkas's mind and head last season. But it's a clean slate under Ange. And I, like you, I've been quite impressed by him. And that save against Preston, the boy Potts' pile driver, it was a sensational save. And probably one you thought he wouldn't have saved last season. You know, so
I agree.
So I think he has to be given every chance. And I think he starts early days, but we signed this guy for £5 million, and he's a Greek international goalkeeper. I think it's time he now stepped up to the plate and showed that, and I think he's beginning to show signs of him being the goalkeeper that Celtic thought they signed.
I 100% agree. You can go far back in this podcast, and I've always been a fan of Barkas. I believe he was first choice for Athens, and he was in the team that knocked us out of the Champions League. He's been the Greek international probably up until he came to Celtic, and obviously things fell apart for him kind of confidence-wise. But come to yourself, John. We've got 2 people on the Barkas side of things, and the Foster talk is probably more paper talk, but going with it anyway, would you take Foster back over Barkas?
Yes, no question. I'll tell you why. I mean, for me, we know how good Foster is, and regardless of what's happened in the past, if the opportunity for him to come back was available, you take it, you run with it. I can't imagine anybody really saying no. I know Tony said no, but and I know you're saying no, Stephen. But I mean, like I said, you know how good he is, and if you did have the opportunity to bring him back, I mean, we need that this year, and we need a proven shot stopper. As you alluded to,
we needed it last year.
No, we did, but I mean, again, with the way things went last year, we don't know the ins and outs of why maybe that fell through. For all we know, the board could have turned around and offered him an absolute shite of a contract, and he could have just been like, "What? Like, I'm no." Like,
Is
do you know what I mean? There's a lot, but there's a lot of underlying factors. There could be many things, and judging by the way last season went and the way the board have been as of late, it wouldn't surprise me if Foster said no because of the state things we're in, and maybe he could see something that we weren't aware of. But anyway, back to the question. Foster would be a great signing again if it was another loan, and he would do. He would do the job for us, and I firmly believe we do need another keeper. I know that you, Stephen, as you mentioned, you've backed Barkas and you think there's a keeper there, and you made some valid points. He was first choice for another club, a Greek international keeper, but not everybody can settle when they go to new clubs. Not everybody, and to me, he just has elements of a guy who isn't settling. We saw it with El Hamid, etc. There's a player there, but he wasn't settling and he wasn't performing to the ability or to the extent that he was capable of. And we've seen many players come to Scotland with a reputation and fail. So, I mean, I wouldn't put down what he's done previously, take too much stock in it, because I think it's maybe a case of he's just not settling. Having Ange there, as Tony said, might be a pivotal thing for him. It might change things, and I really hope it does, because I mean, you spent $5 million on him. I'd love to see a return for him. I just personally don't see it, and I think the goalkeeping position, regardless, is still one we need to strengthen. But I mean, and you mentioned the saves that he's made. I mean, if you play the odds numbers game, I mean, you hit 100 shots at him, he's going to save a couple. Do you know what I mean? So. It's still far too early for me to say confidently that I'm happy with Barkas moving forward. I think he's going to be the man, but I think we should be keeping our options open.
It's all about different opinions, isn't it, really, William? And we all give different takes on what we think. And I think, John, you make a great point. I mean, no one's doubting Foster's talent. Great shot stopper, shut out Barcelona, Messi and everyone was drilling over him, the Spanish newspapers and stuff, William. But there comes a point where you have to let that train go. You have to let the past go. He didn't want to come last season for whatever reason. John alluded to the fact contract issues it could have been. But again, this is not me coming from that point of view. I just personally believe Barkas, this could be his season to go with it and be the Celtic number one. What's your take on
it? By the way, John's starting to sound like Neil Lennon, mitigating factors and contract issues. Anyway, with regards to Foster, I wouldn't have him back. And it's nothing to do with his talent. He's obviously a very, very talented individual, and he's done wonders for us. But I'm always banging on in this podcast about, if you don't want to be here, then go. I don't want you at my club. If you don't want to be here and you don't want to play for the shirt, then away you go. He's not just left us once. He's left us twice. And in the second instant, he's left us in the biggest season of our entire history, almost. And to go and warm a bench down south. So with regards to Foster, nah, fuck him. He can go. I don't want him anywhere near this club. Barkas, again, for me, I don't think he's the answer. I can understand why we're going to go forward with him this year, and if we do, as a fan, he'll have my full backing. But from what I've seen last year, he's not the man for me. I hope I'm proven wrong this year. I would like to see us strengthening that position. Saying that, like I said, if we go forward for him, I totally understand why. But I totally agree with you, Stephen, for a change with the Foster situation. They're not going back again. I can understand you going back once, and in the first time he left, I mean, the circumstances, it was slightly understandable. Well, it's not understandable. You're going to Southampton. I'm not going to rant about this again. I do it every podcast. But no, not for me. Don't want you back. You've turned your back on us twice. This is the best club in the world, and you have been adored by fans. And twice you've turned your back on us. So no, thank you. We're not like, oh, I'll go and try this and go and try that, and if I don't, I'll just always come back to Celtic anyway. No, thank you. I don't care how talented you are. You could be Leo Messi. I'm not wanting you back at the club. I want people that want to play for the shirt.
I like that point. I think we'll end that wee segment on that point. If you don't want to try that, don't try this. You're not coming back to Celtic to try it anyway. I think that's brilliant, William. And we'll move on to the lineup predictions for the crucial game tomorrow evening against FC Midtjylland. tomorrow evening to say that. We record this on Monday, we go out on the Tuesday, so forgive me for that. But come to yourself, Anthony, what is your lineup prediction for tomorrow's game?
In goal, Forster. Like, obviously Barkas in goal, yeah.
Yeah.
Right back, Ralston. Taylor to the left. Beaton and Welsh. Yeah.
Yep.
In the middle, I think you might go with it'll be McGregor and Turnbull for a start. Sorrow if he's fit. And I think you might play Shaw as well. Right? In the 4. And then I think you might play Christie in front of them and Edward up front. I think you might go for like 4-4-1-1 or something. You know what I mean? And get get the word from Christie and maybe Turnbull and advancing, you know, with Sorrow and Shaw sitting, you know, and Christie, Turnbull and McGregor can move forward and support Edward, you know. Yeah, that's what I think.
It's a difficult one because, like I said before, he said everybody that's in that squad's fit and ready, but they're obviously not. If they're all fit and ready, then Julian's going to start all day, but they can't start him. He's not even had any minutes in the park. So I would go Barkas and goal. I still can't believe we're going into a season with Tony Ralston as your fucking first choice right back, man. It's absolute bonkers. But you're going to have to play him. Taylor left back. I would go with Origi and Welsh in the middle of defence. I think there's a player in Origi. I like the fact that he gets stuck in. And the midfield 3 would be Shaw, McGregor, and Turnbull for me. I really like the look of Shaw. I think he's going to be a big player for us. I would go Christie on the right because, again, I think he's a fantastic talent. You just don't lose that overnight. He's had a bad season last season, but I think, especially with Postecoglou's style of play, Christie ticks all the boxes for me. The high press, and he's got an engine all day, and interchangeable play, and getting a shot away and stuff like that. So I would play Christie there. I would start Forrest if he's even semi-fit. Even if he just gives us a half, I would start him. I'd put him on the left, and I would start Eddie up front as well because Tony's bang on. He's not only the best striker at our club, he's the best player at our club by a country mile. And if we want to qualify for these things, we need to play our best players. So he's got to play.
Good point. What about yourself, John?
Yeah, pretty much the same as William. I think Barkas is going to start. Welsh and Origi at the centre. Ralston on the right. Taylor on the left. McGregor. I like Shaw as well. I think Shaw could do a job. Shaw's going to start. Turnbull. I'd play Forrest out on the left as well. I don't know what the situation is with Mikey. Was he on that? I can't even remember off the top of my head. Was he on the list?
Yeah, he's on the list.
Because Mikey, I mean, if he can get minutes out of him and he's fit enough, I'd maybe go Johnson on the left. Eddie definitely up front, and I'd like to see Dembele start on the right. I think that boy's got so much talent and he's got so much to offer us. And especially if he's coming in as like a sort of for the right as an inside forward, you could do some damage as well. So that's what I'd like to see. But again, like looking at that team sheet, as I said earlier, it's other than like your likes of McGregor, Turnbull, Eddie, and maybe Welsh. Everybody else is Taylor. Everybody else is up there. They could start Bain tomorrow. Like,
don't be saying that, John. Don't be saying that.
And this is why I say that as well, that we need to strengthen the goalkeeping position because, I mean, let's say we run with Barkas throughout this course of the season, your backup is Bain and Hazard. I mean, or you bring in a quality shot stopper and maybe he goes forward as your first team and then you've got Barkas as backup. But it's crazy. Or
just bring in a free agent with experience, bring him in. A lot of teams seem to do that to fill a void in the squad anyway. But I'm going to go with
bring Arthur Boric back.
I'm going to go with Barkas in goals, Ralston right back. About to say Julian there. No, Welsh, Beaton centre back, Greg Taylor left back. Now I'm going to explain this, right? So for the midfield three, what do you mean? What?
Thought you'd go with Bolly. You've been singing his praises for 3 weeks.
No, right. But for the midfield three for me, Callum McGregor is going to play a slightly deeper role with Christie and Turnbull in front of him. Now, the reason why I say that is because this is a home game, and there's going to be 9,000 Celtic fans. I think Alan Postecoglou wants Celtic to make a stamp in this game and to go attacking and gung-ho. I mean, especially with our defensive worries, we can't rest in them, so we need to score goals. I think a wee bit of more impetus from the midfield instead of playing a holding midfielder. That's my decision for that. On the left, I would go for Montgomery because he seems to be playing Montgomery there every other pre-season game. On the right, I can see Forrest coming back in the contention, maybe for 60 minutes, and Dembele replacing him. And then up top, just going with my gut instinct. I know you guys are going to be like, what? I'm going to go Albanieri because he's played him in every other game apart, well, coming into this one anyway, in terms of pre-season. I don't know what you guys think about that one.
I wouldn't be adverse to a midfield three. That
Has he not played Eddie in every game as well, though?
Not every
Eddie's
game,
came on. Eddie's featured, hasn't he? But
Aye.
I know he likes to attack, and he might go with a three up front actually, just to try and get the ball away from his defence. I mean, so keep it in that end of the park. He's going to have to. It could be a high scoring affair. Because you just don't see the back of the pack not conceding tomorrow, personally. But I know Midtjylland have got their own problems, haven't they? They've rested players. Or players are looking for big moves. A couple of their star players are looking like they're going to finalise big moves.
Their season's already underway as well, isn't it? And they know like sitting in the lower half of the table at the minute.
Well, I think they had their first game the other night, didn't they? Get beat by Odense. And you know, I think there's internal strife there because one of the strikers has said he's not going to play again because he's had a fallout with the manager. You know, the manager seemingly wonders at Horson's, but he's not very good tactically. That's the reputation that he has, seemingly. So, you know, when I read that today, I thought, you know, because I spoke to a Danish journalist and he was telling me a lot of these things, and I thought, well, I was a wee bit encouraged by that, you know, in terms of a Celtic perspective. You know, he said there's a bit of disarray and they're not the team that they were 12 months ago. He said 12 months ago he would have took them to beat Celtic. He said now if Celtic can't beat this Midtjylland team, then there's no excuses. So, you know, so that's quite a heavy statement to make. But bearing in mind Midtjylland reached the Champions League group stages last season and they played Liverpool, Ajax and Atlanta in the group. That's a group of death. You know what I mean?
They gave a good account of themselves as well.
I mean, they finished fourth in the group. There's no disgrace in that, considering Liverpool are a top side, Atalanta are a fantastic Italian side and having a wee purple period in their history, and Ajax are always there or thereabouts. So, as you say, they did well, but he said that this team are not a patch on that team. So, you know, in terms, I know we've been quite negative per se, but we're only negative of the harsh reality and the facts that are staring us in the face. But if a Celtic team does turn up, then surely they can beat Midtjylland. Surely,
I mean, just to allude to what you said there in terms of negativity, I think we're negative in the here and now. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in months ahead. And in regards to Midtjylland, I think you make a great point. There is some disarray in their team. I was listening to 67 Heel today. They had a Danish podcaster on as well. He was saying about that their star striker is refusing to play for them. But again, they do have some good players like Swiatchenko. We all know him. And then Sisto, the left winger, he played for Celta Vigo. Apparently he's like a speed merchant, so he's one to look out for. But coming on to score predictions, I'll come to yourself, John, first for this. What have you gone for? And if you can, goal scores as well.
I'm going to say 2-1 to us. And I'm going to say Eddie and Turnbull.
What about yourself, William?
Yeah, 2-1 for me too. Eddie and Christie.
Anthony?
I go for a clean sweep of 2-1s. I think Eddie at the double.
Oh, nice one. That's a good one. I'm going to go for 2-1 as well, so it's a quadruple sweep. I'm going to go for Ayeti and Turnbull to get the goals. But guys, look, because obviously this podcast has run over, I'm going to leave out the quiz this week. I'm sure that's a relief to one of you anyway, Anthony.
I still got 100% record.
It's been a great show, and obviously we appreciate you coming back on. And Anthony, if you want to tell the viewers the listeners, about your latest project in the venture and back into journalism, go ahead.
Yeah, I've started journalist. I'm working for the Celtic Way. If you log into @the Celtic Way, it's a subscription service, and you can read some quality Celtic content, watch some videos, opinion, features, and you can also read some of my stuff as well. So yeah, it's really enjoying it. It's pretty hands-on. My official title is an online digital sports journalist. I think the online digital thing we might struggle with, as you guys have already. Tech is not my forte, but I get there. I once called Neil Lennon an analog manager in the digital world. I know exactly how he feels now. It's analog journal in a digital world, but I'm getting there. It's been a week since I started learning all the tech stuff, and I'm getting there slowly but surely. But yeah, that's the new venture. It's great to be back in, and it's wonderful to be writing about this wonderful football club of ours that we all love and we all support and we all want to see do well. So thanks for that. Appreciate that.
And you can also find Anthony on a Monday and a Friday on the ACSOM Bulletin, which comes out at 12 o'clock daily, and it's fantastic as well. So give a shout out to them guys, Celtic State of Mind. Have you enjoyed this one, Anthony?
Oh, brilliant. I always love it. I was saying that we just couldn't square or synchronise watches the last time, so my apologies for taking so long. It just every time I was just like, oh god, I can't do it. I hate saying no to people. It's obviously somebody once said to me, "No's a complete sentence. You better remember it." It's just like, right, you know. So, but no, love it, guys. It's an absolute pleasure. I enjoy it. All right, and it's always good to talk to you.
No worries. Thanks for coming back on, and to my co-host.
Pleasure.
And to my co-host John and the show regular William, appreciate you guys as well. And before we end,
Thanks,
just want to draw you're welcome. I just want to draw the listeners' attention to our latest spin-off special, which is titled Grassroots: The Road to Success. It's a fantastic spin-off series. Anthony is hosting it alongside Chris Boyle, an excellent guest. Not Anthony, who's on the podcast now, but Anthony Dunn, a show regular of ours. And it's just basically looking into grassroots football all around the world, Scotland as well, and the kind of compare and contrast different nations. They look at the state of the grassroots football in Scotland compared to Iceland and stuff like that. So it's just a fantastic show to get into about the young up-and-coming footballer stars throughout the world. And to the listeners, until we speak again, hail, hail.